Unlocking Africa's growth is in focus at the Standard Bank conference underway in Cape Town, and we're continuing our coverage on the ground with our head of news, Bronwyn Seaborn. Bronwyn.
Thanks, Nolly. Yes, it's day 2 of the Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth Conference, which is being hosted by Standard Bank's Business and Commercial Banking Unit. And one of the panels that is being highlighted today is entitled Africa's Giants. The CEOs of both Standard Bank and Naspers will be sitting on that panel to give insights into what it means to do business in Africa. And a reminder to our viewers that they can tune in at 3 p.m. to watch that discussion. There's also a lot of chatter here in the hallways, entrepreneurs getting insights into some of the challenges that they face in terms of doing business on the continent and learning from each other in terms of how to navigate those challenges as well. And amidst all of that, I caught up with Simone Cooper. She's the head of business and commercial banking in South Africa at Standard Bank. And I started off by asking her what her key takeaways were from day 1 yesterday. And we also discussed the outlook for doing business in South Africa. So here's that conversation.
Day 1 was fantastic, a really great day. I think the biggest key takeout for me was the networking that everybody did. I heard so many stories about people who have been struggling to access other markets across the continent, and they did that in yesterday's session. So I think that that's one of the key takeaways. The other pieces of the conference that I really enjoyed was the discussion on energy and the just energy transition, and how the speakers were really highlighting the just component of how we transition into this new world of energy. And then the other piece which really resonated with me was the family-owned businesses piece. I think that the energy in the room was fantastic. Many of the other delegates are facing issues around how do they deal with succession, how do they deal with equity within a family-owned business. So you could just really see that that was one of the topics that everybody loved, and I thoroughly enjoyed it and learned a lot.
There is quite a lot of focus on it being Africa, and you highlighted that in what you've taken from day 1. It's this sense of community on the African continent. And I was speaking to the Standard Bank CEO for South Africa, Lungisa Fuzile, and he was saying that, you know, we need to move away from this idea of there's South Africa and then there's rest of Africa. We need to look at it, you know, as one. We are all a part of Africa. Is that, as you sit as the head of Business and Commercial Banking, South Africa, easier said than done? How do we break this disconnect between there's South Africa on the one hand and rest of Africa on the other?
So I don't think it's only South Africa and rest of Africa. I think we all tend to operate within our particular environment, within our local market, and that's a natural tendency. So conferences such as this are intended to create those connections, not only for the businesses that we deal with and our clients, but also for our own people, for people within the bank as well. It's great to sit down with another colleague from a different economy and say, what are the challenges that you're facing? How do you deal with things? Because inherently we all have the same challenges. Having worked on the continent for a number of years, I think that there's also a lot that South Africa can learn from some of the other economies and vice versa. And so it's really about being open to that. And a conference such as this does exactly that. It opens your eyes, it creates those connections, and I think that we will start to see far more coming from a conference such as this, both for our clients and for Standard Bank as a whole in terms of how we deal across the continent.
If we do look inward, then there was a lot of talk in the lead up to the elections, what's going to happen. There was a lot of business response coming from that as well. We've now had the formation of the government of national unity, and the question on everyone's mind now that everything is to an extent settled is South Africa open for business in your opinion?
So the business economy that we deal with, or the part of the economy that we deal with in business and commercial banking, is always, in my mind, a very positive set of people. They're always looking for opportunities. You'll very rarely see businesses and entrepreneurs in this segment of the economy complaining about things. They're actually the ones who are saying, how do we find a solution to this? How do we do business? So in my mind, absolutely open for business. There was some nervousness leading up to the elections, but really this segment of the economy, in my mind, is the one that really wants to drive business, get out there, do business. And so from my perspective, it really is positive.
If we look ahead for business and commercial banking in South Africa, what are some of the themes that you're going to see come through, say, in the next year?
So I think in the South African context, it's really a lot of investment in terms of how do businesses that were perhaps holding off prior to the election, we're seeing a lot of those businesses starting to invest, so a lot of capital investment going into the economy. So I think that is great from that perspective. And then I do think that in this ever-changing world, businesses are looking at how do they reshape themselves. So what other opportunities are out there? Where do they look for markets beyond South Africa? And you do see a lot of our businesses starting to look beyond the borders of South Africa. Given the population growth in Africa, given the opportunities that sit there, there's definitely great momentum out of the continent itself.
Simone Cooper is the head of business and commercial banking at Standard Bank in South Africa.